Crazier version.
All right, we're going to continue the talks around gaming with more building Web3 games. Ronnie, if you want to go ahead and bring up our panelists, we'd love to welcome up on the stage. How about a warm round of applause? And I'll let them introduce themselves as they get to the place.
All right, hello everyone.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good to be here.
Okay, cool. Quick round of intros. My name is Ronnie Levi. I work for MarketAcross. We are a PR and marketing firm based in Tel Aviv, servicing some of the biggest projects in the space, including Market League and Xternity.
I'm Sagi, I'm co-founder of Xternity Games. We have an infrastructure that help game developers to easily build on Web3. And these days we are building our own gaming network for casual games on the mobile.
My name is Johnny Lee. I'm General Manager of Games, Entertainment, and Media at Solana Foundation.
Short and sweet. My name's Oren Langberg. I'm the head of marketing and partnerships at Monkey League and Uncaged Studios. We are essentially a franchise of mobile games built for Web 2 and Web 3, and Solana.
Cool. So our topic is about building Web3 games. First question that comes to my mind when we jump onto that topic is, if I'm building a game in 2023, what are the factors that I should be considering if I'm trying to decide between building on a traditional game engine, getting into Web 2, or should I be considering Web 3? Like, what are the things that I should be thinking about? What should I be asking myself if Web 3 will add value to the game concept that I have?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I think, when you're building a game, you're building a game, right? You shouldn't necessarily think Web 3, Web 2, Web 7. I would first and foremost focus on, building a fun game that either, is better than a reference game or fills a void, that has a solid core game loop, and that is fun first, right? And then understand, essentially what Web3 components you can add to enhance that, right? Your characters in the game can be those game assets. You'll have an in-game currency that is essentially an open economy, right? So you create an environment that, first and foremost, you're building a fun first game, high production value game that is good for Web 2 and Web 3 players. That's where I see it going essentially as well.
Yeah, I think Oren is right, and to add to that, sometimes it's lost that blockchain is infra, right? And so by definition, it's games backend, games infrastructure, and to evaluate that on how that adds to your player experience, your in-game economy, and how you're able to build sort of blockchain native or just new business models with that infrastructure technology. I think that's the right thinking versus Web3 versus Web2. How does that do? And then you're going to have to use that infra to build new sustainable business models, which NFT drops and collections are not.
Yeah, and I guess when you think, I'm so sorry, but when you think about Web 2 and Web 3, those are more like go-to-market strategies, right? They're more like tactics.
Marketing.
Hello.
I agree with both of you, but I do believe that you should ask yourself whether you have any plans or intentions to implement the Web3. And let's forget about the word Web3 or Web2, but kind of ownership layer. And even ownership is not human beings. I agree that you should build a fun game, but we don't necessarily need the Web3 revolution to let us know that the game should be fun. We knew that before, but any time that you build a game, you think about the narrative, you think about the theme, you think about the mechanics, but you also think about the platform that you're going to build on, you think about the audience. And if you do believe that there is a potential and interest with your audience that they would like to be owners of their assets, you should consider the Web3. It doesn't necessarily to take some significant action at the beginning and then first to improve your core game mechanics. But take into consideration in your game design that there will be a place for Web3. I do agree, and we saw this actually, that all games also can implement Web3 elements, but it will be much easier to get those elements seamlessly if you thought about them in advance in your game design in two parts. First, in the narrative, in the story, why should I own it? What would I do with this? Just user experience. And the second layer is the economy. How is it going to be involved within your economy without destroying the economy and to be sustainable? And at Xternity, we believe that first you need to prove that gamers has the motivation and incentive to own something within your game. They have the incentive to trade them, and it's not going to hurt your economy. And this is why we believe you should take the economy of this layer outside of the core of the game mechanics. I think this is something that we've learned in the last few years from other games.
Yeah, and actually, even building on that, having your game be Web3 compatible or Web3 ready is definitely not a decision to take lightly. You definitely need to have that plan. Like as soon as you're saying, okay, I want to build a game, this is the game I want to build, do I want to build for Web3? Definitely not a decision you should be taking later and adding 100%. It needs to be like within the game design, the whole economy has a lot more repercussions than a closed game platform that you earn in-game currency within that game environment and that's it. And everything impacts the economy, right? So the number of NFTs, the different traits, the status of each trait, the circulation of tokens, the in-game store. So it's definitely not something you should start to think about later on.
So you guys are focused on the economics. You're saying that, in Web3, like if you're going to build a game in Web3, the economics are important. Obviously, play to earn was such a huge thing, such a huge concept in the last few years. It's kind of died out a little bit. Where do you guys see that now in the market and in the games that you're building and the markets that you're focused on? Do you think that that'll have a comeback? Do you think there's a place in this space for play to earn, or do you think that was just like a fad for a little bit that'll come and that came and went and we probably won't see it again?
I see it pretty clearly. I think it's totally a fad. It made sense for the time, right? Blockchain allowed people to own assets and earn some kind of currency, right? So it essentially opened the floodgates to a lot of low production games where, you know, two dudes in their mom's garage just made a low production value game, but slapped an earning mechanism on it and it just went gold, right? Gone are those days, that's for sure, especially through this kind of down market that we've seen in the last couple of years. And also that's given way to, you know, only the strong survive, right? Higher production value games. You know, I saw in the last couple of years all the different fads go from play to earn and play and earn and play to, like, you know, anything you can create. And the way I see it is, it's just gaming. You know, like Web 2, Web 3, Web 3 just enhances that experience. You see, even now with NFL Rivals. NFL Rivals came out with their NFT game. There's zero kind of mention around it, and people are coming into it. So it's just about the next evolution of gaming in general, I think.
Like you said, fun first, right?
Yeah, correct. We saw the play to earn or play and earn wave pretty early on as unsustainable. And also, if your primary incentive of your user base is to earn, by definition, you're not a game, you're more of a DeFi product. So we actively moved away from that, and we were the first blockchain protocol to require playtests when evaluating commercial support for games.
I agree with both of you. I do believe that it was an important phase at this stage, at that stage, when I think if we wouldn't implemented the play to earn at the beginning, we wouldn't experience the boom or the hype. So, and we believe that the Web3 is not a revolution, it's an evolution. And maybe it was good, the first steps of the evolution. I don't think it was a mistake, but we learned from this it's not a sustainable model. Now we need to redefine the sustainable model and keep go on with that model. And so overall, I do think that there are games that you can play and earn, not as a gambling, and maybe the way we implemented it at the beginning was not the right way. And I do think that there is no place anymore for the old play to earn, but play it on and maybe earn from this. It's acceptable and it's good, and maybe you will sell some of your assets. Maybe you will lose, maybe you will win, but it's not that you're going to. It's not going to replace your day job.
Yeah, and I think it's important to like elaborate for people that don't fully understand like the differences. Like, it's not that Web3 or what we're talking about is like a scenario where you're not going to be able to earn from the game and things like that. But play to earn is literally anybody that entered the game, regardless of skill or anything, would be able to earn some currency. And that is just simply not sustainable, right? So Web3 definitely allows, empowers players with the ability to own their assets, right? But also through skill-based earnings, earn the in-game currency, right? That holds value outside of the platform. So it's not like there won't be earnings, but it's super interesting that like when people, it's like human nature, when something new, people will push the limits. They'll go as far as they can, and everyone earns and everything like that. And then we're just kind of reining it in and coming back to reality and understanding what is the most responsible and what makes the most sense, and what will make this game not be a fad, but last for a lifetime.
Another thing I want to clarify, to build on what you said, Sagi, was, and I thought it was an incredible point, we are not up here like vilifying the early play-to-earn game developers. They were iterating and testing, and to your point, which I thought was fantastic, not all speculation is bad, right? It brought a level of excitement, it brought a level of investment and awareness into the developer community. I would say where some of the games industry takes responsibility is we aped into it a little bit too hard. Right?
I don't think the developers who use the play to earn should feel bad about that. It's part of the evolution. It's naturally what they thought. I think that the skills is a good an example of a closed economy loop. You know how much you put, you know that some of this is going to be fees, some of this is going to be for the winner, and it's a good, and I think we will find in the future the right vision how to do the ownership. Of of course, the previous play-to-earn model was not good enough.
Yeah, and one of the issues is, and I totally agree that these guys really kind of paved the way, right?
Yeah.
And that's for sure. And there's also, side effects of that too, because, the whole Web3 kind of world and crypto and especially gaming has evolved so fast in the last couple of years because of this bear market and the washout and things like that, that the people within Web3, right, the speculators and the gamers, they didn't have time to adjust, right? So they're still expecting that play-to-earn experience, and they're still expecting that 100x no matter what. So it's like, it's a big adjustment all around. It makes it actually quite challenging from like the studio side.
Yeah, it's a rude awakening. Like, hey, you're not going to become a millionaire off of
It's like we are the ones that need to tell them Santa's doesn't exist.
So then if play to earn is not the model, then what is? What's the sustainable long-term models to build out games in Web3?
I think we have yet to see what, like we said, like we're still understanding that fine line. I think, at least at Monkey to get on the cage, first of all, we, our founders, one of which, Raz Friedman, was the co-founder of Playtika. He was the chief product officer there, one of the pioneers of free-to-play gaming, right? So, to have that in-game currency, that all the free-to-play economics. So we came with a clear vision that we weren't going to be play-to-earn even 2 years ago. We had a clear vision that would be more skill-based earning, but our economy is essentially a combination between free-to-play, skill-based, and a free-to-own or a play-to-play and earn type of scenario. So it's a mesh between all of that. Essentially, there's an in-game store, you have in-game resources, you have your NFT assets, you have your currency that is used throughout the ecosystem, right? So it's just about applying the right levers that make that economy self-sustaining, and then, you get to a point where it's almost like a flywheel, right? So, you have your user base that are playing, and you have new users coming in, but even without new users, you're sustaining yourself. That's what it's about, finding that right mix, right? I don't think anybody has the magic solution yet.
I think there are, in general, two options. To have a sustainable economy model, and I work with Raz a lot about the economy models at Playtika. You need a closed loop or understand if someone earns some tokens, whether if it's an in-game token, soft currency, where does it come from? And I believe in two major options. The first is by trading in fees and split the fees within the community in a different contribution, not in an equal way, because then it's not fun. So sometimes you lose, sometimes you win, but overall you have a great experience. And the other thing is to release limited editions, which we already experienced in other platforms, whether it's Roblox, Fortnite, Call of Duty, it's already there. But at Xternity, we're trying to figure out how to make it more simple, how to make it more relevant for casual players, not only for hardcore gamers. And even though if they do not earn at 10x or not 100x, but just be able to trade it. And why do we need the Web3 to do it? Because we can do it without the Web3. I think this is going to be the tipping point when we figure out how to do it between games. That means which meta layer we connect between games. And if there's a limited edition of some assets or some lands or something that you can use in different games, that would be interesting. And I don't think that I can take my car and play the monkey.
Maybe one day. I think as you were saying it too, I think it's super important, and what we realize, especially now also, is that when we're building a game for Web 2 and Web 3, you definitely need Web 2 players within that overall economy contributing to it. Whether in fiat, it still needs to connect to the overall ecosystem and the economy. It's a super important aspect of it.
Yeah, this is why I would say people who've worked in the games industry a while really understand that games are very difficult products to ship. And in particular, good games. You have to think through player onboarding. The core gameplay loop needs to be unique and sticky and then you're literally designing an economy. And with the additional added complexity of interweaving Web3 into the in-game economy, user onboarding, and even your core gameplay loop. I believe that right now we are obviously early in Web3 games, and where we focused on is 3 general buckets of games that could move more speedily into Web3, because of course we want to excite the user base, show the players that Web3 or blockchain adds value to games, and those large 3 buckets are UGC, social PvP games, and MMOs, of course, right? And I think Monkey League touches on 2 of those categories. And so the wave of those games are about to come. I would say H2 and H1 of next year you're going to see the first wave of real fun first, player experience first games that utilize blockchain in many different ways, but those 3 buckets. And then when we're talking about further years out, I think we will see unique implementations of the blockchain technology in even the core gameplay loop.
Got it. So, Sagi, you mentioned something about fees being part of the model, and I think asset ownership, or just the concept of ownership in general, is one of the biggest parts of Web3. So, do you guys all agree that like asset swaps and the fees to be collected from that, is that like a super important component of gaming in Web3 and like the business model itself?
I think it should be asset swap is also already existing. So what's going to be the difference? I think that, and here by the way we're starting with a problem and not with just fun, because a lot of games now have an issue with monetizing their games. It's getting super tight and super competitive. But I think similar to the free-to-play revolution, when games give the opportunity for players to play for free and expecting for a new business model, here we will find the same symptoms or the same way how to change the business. So I mean that game developers should give it a try to let players trade between themselves, even though they know that they are going to lose some profit from the primary sale. Because until now they prefer me as a game to sell each one of you and avoid the trade between you because I want to control. And once we will see a few titles like Market, like other games, how they will, and they will give this ability to players, they will grow faster. And then the other games will need to adopt this mechanism and option. And until now, I don't see any good interest for games to let their players do so. This is my opinion. I think this would be the penetration or the go-to-market of trading assets.
Let's talk about guilds, because I think play to earn was, we all agree, wasn't such a big sustainable long-term thing, but guilds was also a pretty big thing in the last few years, and I think that's also kind of slowed down quite a bit. Do you guys see that as part of the long-term vision? Do you think that that'll make a comeback at some point?
I've seen the guild's evolution through the last couple of years, like firsthand, because we have over a dozen guild partners that I talk to on a daily basis. These are kind of real people that this is their company, this is their job, their passion, and the essential death of play to earn essentially forced a lot of these guilds to reevaluate what they do and to kind of have added services and to kind of evolve and adapt themselves, right? Because they're not going to be able to survive and sustain themselves just on scholar earning through Axie Infinity and things like that. The amount they're earning, even in Axie Infinity, is like a dwarf to what it was a couple of years ago. And these kind of games that are just fueled on new user growth through that, it's going to eventually kind of die out. But so guilds are finding a way to evolve. I've seen some guilds do it great, where they're focused really on the esports side and being highly competitive. And just like any company that needs to adapt through tough times, maybe you need to kind of lean out the amount of scholars you have, and you know what I mean? So it's definitely not going to be how it was 2 years ago. I see it right now and today. I doubt even guilds are investing in any assets in new games. I would be very surprised if they were. So yeah, like I've seen them evolve in different ways, largely around esports component, and yep.
So blockchain game guilds are interesting. They provided quite a service in educating local player bases onto Web3 games, teaching them blockchain Web3 skills, and many of them, in particular, the folks at YGG Southeast Asia, which I think recently rebranded to W3GG, were changing the lives of local citizens by teaching them these skills, and that they were able to earn more than their typical daily wage by playing a play-to-earn game. Now, I think that might not be sustainable, but the few key things they did, like educate and train local citizens in new tech and new digital products, is something that I would encourage all guilds to lean into.
Yeah, in the end though, they'll get, like I've seen a couple of them really do it nicely in terms of like focusing on the esports aspect, like you said, offering an educational platform, also switching it up. Like, why I have 300 people, why can't we be alpha testers, right? That game companies pay money all the time for, right? And I don't mean to be the gloomy guy, but when you think about it in terms of numbers, 500 players that a guild offers is a drop in the bucket of what you need in terms of daily active users, right? So I think the amount of tension that they will get will also go down a bit, and I say that with a heavy heart, you know what I mean? But in the end, the strong will survive, right? The ones that add real value will last.
Okay, last question. Mass adoption. We're working to get there, and it seems like, in terms of just general gaming, the mainstream mostly focuses on mobile gaming, but hardcore gamers mostly focus on desktop gaming. Where do you guys see the trend going more towards? Is it going to be more on the mobile side or on the desktop side?
I don't think it's true that mainstream focuses overly on mobile gaming. More of the hardcore games and the evergreen titles and the titles that last decades are mostly PC consoles.
I agree with that, Ronnie, and I also don't think that it's a matter of a platform. When it was like the mobile revolution, it's about the platform. Maybe if you have a new console, it's about the hardware. But Web3 is a concept, it's a kind of experience concept, monetization concept, economy concept, but it's cross devices. And I do think that both platforms, mobile and the PC, has a key role in this evolution, which I think that it's easier to integrate blockchain capabilities and blockchain benefits and Web3 features in the PC and getting the hardcore gamers. On the other hand, I do believe, and this is what we bet on, that the casual ownership with the mass players will become from the mobile, even though it requires to do some trade-offs of the Web3 elements and to reduce them and to gradually adopt them and not like in the PC. So I do think that the pioneering ideas will come from the PC games. They have more freedom, they don't depend on the Google and Apple policies, and the mass adoption will come from the mobile. This is how we see it.
Okay. Thanks for your time, guys. Thanks for listening, crowd. And our time is up according to the screen, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.